as a Jew, and listening to you saying, it's incredible that the number of Palestinian people that are unable to criticize Hamas for their disgraceful attack, I find it even more shameful and disgraceful and unbelievable that the people that suffered the Holocaust are creating an ethnic cleansing genocide. And I don't care how terrible those attacks were by Hamas, which they were. It does not give you the right to displace and destroy 2 million people's lives. And I find it shameful that the West, the British government, the American government, and the French government are allowing this to continue unabated, where there are people that have no water, no sanitation, no food, no electricity. The hospitals last night on CNN were showing, not on Al Jazeera. The doctor was talking. They don't have any anesthesia. They had to operate on children without anesthesia because they have run out. And how any Jew gets on here and says, but, look what happened to us in the Holocaust. My great-grandparents were killed in the Holocaust. I don't care. The Jews should have learned from that. No better. Do not do what you were done to.
James, James, I hear you, and obviously all the listeners, we hear you, but where would you put the responsibility of Hamas, the terrorist group, in terms of what's going on now? Do you think they have any responsibility?
Oh, I'm not saying Hamas don't have a responsibility, but I think that the way and what Israel is doing is not the way to get rid of Hamas.
What do you think they should be doing? What would you do if you were the Prime Minister of Israel right now? What would you be doing?
I would have, first of all, I would have secured all the borders. I would have taken a step back. I would not have just gone boom, 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 just like willy-nilly blanket bombing. And I would have devised a plan. And the plan really should be, and is what they're sort of trying to do now, is sending special forces on missions into Gaza and do it that way. But you do not destroy 2 million people's lives. And all that they're going to do, Sajid, is that they're going to create a new generation of people that are going to support Hamas. I mean, look at the Al Jazeera journalist yesterday. His wife and 2 children and grandson just killed. It's non-stop.
No, what you're James, you do need of course, you need a plan. There needs to be a plan for what happens next. So even if Israel succeeds in its objective of eliminating Hamas, what happens next? And that's what you're pointing to. And look, very, very interesting to hear your views here, indeed, especially as a British Jew. Thank you.
What is happening is, if you criticize Israel, if you say anything about anything that, is not the government line at the moment in the UK or goes against the Israel-Hamas, then, you are anti-Semite. And that is not the case. What we are very, very, very anti is the genocide that is happening in Gaza. We are anti-apartheid that Israel is committing against the Palestinians and has been doing for the last 17 years against Gaza. We're anti-evil that Israel is doing. We're not anti-Jewish. We're not exposing for that at all.
But do you? I understand what you're saying, Zach. I think the point you're trying to make is that you can be anti-Israeli government policy, and not be anti-Semitic. I think that's what you're trying to say. But what do you say about when Lionel, a member of our British community, a Jewish member of our British community, and when he feels threatened by some of the things that he's hearing on the street?
Well, you know what, that is terrible, but look at what Suella Braverman has been saying. Her language is really pushing Islamophobia. Her dog whistles, I would say, have really done a lot of damage, certainly for the social cohesion of the communities here. I understand she's got, obviously, lobbies behind her who are pushing her to hold that line, and she has. But what has she done? She's the Home Secretary for the United Kingdom. She should be tackling the knife crime. She hasn't. It's terrible. We've got food bank going up. And what is she doing? She is pushing the Israeli line. She's not a government minister for Israel.
Well, Zach, I don't want this to be a discussion about food banks and wider discussions about Home Office policy. I think today it's about this really big issue on extremism, which you have talked about. But I think that on the issue of the point that Lionel made, are you agreeing or disagreeing with him? Do you think Jewish people in Britain should feel threatened the way they are? Do you think that's right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Well,
not.
then I think you agree with me, more needs to be done, to have that line, that balance between what is freedom of speech, legitimate freedom of speech, and when that turns into both threatening behaviour, but especially when it turns into hate crime and extremism. I think we need to do more to tackle that.
Absolutely, but we must be clear on this as well, that what Israel is doing is apartheid, it's war crimes, and we must help Gaza. And that is the root cause of it. And because we have fallen asleep, we've allowed 17 years of Gaza.
Well, Zach, can I just one more question, because then we're going to have to move on. But I don't agree with what you've just said about Israel there, but I noticed you didn't say anything about the atrocity that was committed by the terrorist group Hamas and how that impacted Israel and Israelis.
No. That's just being silly. Let's be honest. Israel has been murdering Palestinians for the last 50 years. The apartheid policies. This is exactly why
we're going to have to
leads to more evil.
I've heard you. I don't agree with what you're saying there, but I'm glad you called in.
I'm well pro-Palestinian and well against Hamas, but I don't see this conversation going fairly on both sides, because quite often you're asking pro-Palestinian people to condemn Hamas, but you're never asking to condemn the Israel government, people who are calling and supporting Israel in their case. Never even once they was asked, but what about 15 years of Israeli government doing? No one is asking that, but as soon as someone is supporting Palestine, is obligated to condemn Hamas. I think Hamas done terrible things. They never done anything good for Palestinian people, not even once. So if they would disappear, that would be the best thing to happen for Palestinian people. But the conversation in media is not fair. The usage of language, we hear everywhere, united front of Israel have right of self-defense. It's not self-defense anymore. Self-defense should happen on that Saturday, the 7th. Now it's counterattack, it's counteroffensive, whatever they're doing.
Paul, I hear you, but just imagine, you're British, you're calling from a High Wycombe, I'm assuming you're British. Imagine there was a terrorist attack in the UK, and in terms of population, it would be equivalent to 12,000 British people being murdered by a terrorist organisation in a single day. Would you not expect the UK government to respond and to defend itself and to go after that terrorist group?
Yes, but when you're going after them, it's called counterattack, counteroffensive.
It's a counteroffensive, but don't you believe the British government, just like the Israeli government, would have a right to defend itself?
Defend itself. If I'm gonna come back home from work and some of my family is gonna be killed, can I go and self-defense myself by killing the oppressor?
Yeah, but listen, defense isn't just about waiting for your enemy to arrive and to start killing you. That isn't defense only, right? You've obviously got to protect yourself and try to minimize the risk of that happening. But once your enemy has attacked you, then defense is also sometimes going on the offensive and going after your enemy. Do you see that?
But call it by a name. It's counter-offensive.
Well, call it what you want, but I think you agree with me. Israel has a right to defend itself, and in doing so, sadly, because of the way Hamas operates, and it deliberately embeds itself in Palestinian schools and huspitals, and it misleads because it doesn't care about Palestinian lives, does it? Because if it does, it wouldn't have kept a huge fuel stockpile under the hospital that exploded.
I do agree with you that Hamas, it's the worst thing for Palestinian people, even worse.
It doesn't, I think we agree. We can at least agree. Hamas doesn't care about Palestinian people. It never has done. It's an instrument of the Iranian state. That's why it's a proscribed terrorist organization here in the UK and many other countries. And all it cares about is what its Iranian masters want to see. That's all it cares about. But look, thank you. I think we can agree on that. Thank you very much, Paul, for that. I'm going to turn very quickly to Anne in Yorkshire. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Hi, Anne. What would you like to share with us?
Sajid. Northerner, like yourself. What I'd like to say is that I absolutely abhor what Hamas did on the 7th of October. It didn't do them any favours. It didn't do the Palestinians any favours, because the Israelis were going to go in gung-ho. They don't care about the Palestinians either in the same vein, in my opinion. I'm a Christian Catholic. I've got a different point of view. I don't want to see Palestine wiped off the map because, it's a map in our Christian Bible. I don't want to see it wiped off the map and becoming Israel. Now, going back to 2007, I was on holiday and I was on a boat trip with my husband and my daughter and a friend. And Israelis can give it as well. They heard us speaking English, so they came over and started talking to us, these two guys. And, oh, you from London? No, we're 4 hours from London. And bearing in mind, at the time, my daughter just completed a ethics, theology, philosophy degree, so she knew everything about this situation over there. And so they started talking about... We were talking nice at first, and then they started talking about...
Hey, Anne, I'm a little pressed for time because we're approaching the news hour.
Well, I'm just telling you how they insulted me as a Catholic Christian. So then they started talking very racially about dirty Arabs living in London. Disgusting.
Yeah, well, that is disgusting, and I'm sorry to hear that. And also the point that you made about Palestinians. Yeah, I think you can be very much, like I am, pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel, and I believe very much in the legitimate right of the Palestinians, their right to justice and to have their own state. And I want to see a two-state solution. And I think you can say that and believe that, and at the same time say Israel must be able to defend itself against terrorism.